I think I'm gonna start talking. Feel free to carry on eating, and as billed, we're talking about matters of life and death, and Dee provided us soup and bread to die. Delicious. Well done, Dee. Thank you, thank you. Yay.
There is more, so please help yourself.
So tonight, Vivi and I are going to share the spotlight talking about advanced directives, wills, and trusts. So we've sort of divided things in half. There'll be time for some questions after each portion, or at the end if there's some that overlap. However it works out, we're game. So let's start talking about matters of life and death. It was Benjamin Franklin who spoke the immortal words, "In this world, nothing is certain except death and taxes." Now, I can't give you any help with your W-2s or itemized deductions, but tonight I am going to talk about death. Most of my medical career before I retired was spent caring for seniors. So I had lots of experience talking with patients and families about death and plans for end-of-life medical care. How many of you have had a close friend or family member die within the past 5 years? Whoa, there's a lot of us. And how many of those folks died at home?
Well, it's the same person.
And George before her.
Okay. I think a lot of us sort of wish for our mental image of a Walton's kind of death. With grandpa lying under the homemade quilt, holding the hand of his wife of 60 years, the children and grandchildren arranged at the foot of the bed. But the reality is, about 85% of Americans will die in the hospital. Usually in the ICU, surrounded by beeping machines, fluorescent lights, and antiseptic smells. Tonight we'll talk about advanced directives or options to guide the medical treatment that you receive at the end of life, whether you wish to be in a facility at that time or in your own home. Despite increasing awareness of advanced directives, a recent survey found that 1/3 of Americans have never talked about that issue with their medical care provider. I agree with that saying about end-of-life medical discussions used by the Conversation Project, which is, "It always seems too soon until it's too late." And here's a too late.
Oh my
I wish I could tell you that your primary care provider will bring up advanced directives in a routine office visit, but it probably is going to fall to you to initiate those discussions. And if you don't discuss this ahead of time, the default medical approach tends to be, we have the latest technology and treatments, so we use the latest technology and treatments because we doctors are trained to cure. In addition, I think there are changes in the doctor-patient relationship that are a part of the end-of-life care issue. Instead of having one family doctor who delivered you and saw you through your growing years and took care of you all your life, most of us see multiple medical specialists. In my geriatrics office, I used to display a sign that said, "You know you are getting older when the names in your little black book end in MD." And most of us who are senior citizens have a pretty thick little black book these days. Planning for end-of-life medical care can be triggered if someone in the family becomes ill or dies. Sometimes major life events, retirement, or a big move hospitalization, a new serious diagnosis, or even a Lenten series at your church. Tonight, we're going to talk about 2 ways that you can set out your wishes about end-of-life medical care ahead of time, before a crisis arrives. Which details what type of treatment you would or would not want under certain conditions. And the medical power of attorney, which names a person to be your substitute decision maker. You may also see an advance directive form in Colorado that's called a MOST form, which some of you recognize that term. It stands for Medical Orders for Scope of Treatment.
Is it always lime green? Because every
It often is.
Yeah, it was so funny because I noticed every time I got one, it was lime green.
Why they chose that color, I
It's
don't.
really obvious when you're looking through your files to find it.
Yep, that's true. Yep. That's the one option for medical directives that has to be completed by medical personnel. But the purpose is the same. It's to direct medical care at the end of life. So each of these written options provides direction for a time when you may no longer be able to verbalize your wishes or your healthcare choices. But my biggest takeaway for all of you from tonight is more important than any of these forms is conversation. Conversation with your family, conversation with your medical providers. That's the key to good medical care at the end of life. We'll talk first about a living will, a document that anticipates medical issues at the end of life and indicates your preference either to utilize or decline them. And this information is really not just important for your medical care providers, but also for your loved ones. During my career, I've had many painful discussions with family members who are anguishing over decisions to accept or forego medical treatments for a loved one who hadn't left any advance indication of their priorities or their wishes. If a living will exists, on the other hand, family can be reassured that their decisions about care are honoring the previously specified wishes of their loved one. A living will takes effect when someone has a terminal medical condition and is unable to communicate. And in general, it expresses your wish for death to occur naturally and instructs your medical team to withdraw or withhold treatment that would only prolong dying. There are usually specific treatments that you may wish to have or to avoid: resuscitation, antibiotics, dialysis, artificial nutrition, mechanical ventilation, transfusion. Those are probably the most common. And usually you can specify, I want this treatment no matter what my prognosis is. Try this treatment for a specified period of time. So give me 3 days, and if I'm getting better, great, continue. If I'm not, then withdraw this treatment. Or 3, I want this treatment no matter what my situation is. Many living will formats also include sort of a general option to decline other medical treatment or intervention that may extend your life or prolong the process of dying. But be assured, no matter what the details of your living will say, medical treatment for comfort and symptom relief is always appropriate and always provided. Living wills do not require the assistance of a lawyer. Sorry, Vivian. You can revise or revoke them as the writer. They do require 2 witnesses unrelated to you and who will not inherit from you and are not part of your medical care. So living will is option 1 for advance directives. The second option is a medical power of attorney, or sometimes you'll hear power of attorney for health care, or even the term medical proxy.
We've just talked about a living will as being very valuable in stating your personal values and desires for health care, but it can never address every conceivable medical situation. And I'll just give you one example. For someone who has emphysema or chronic lung disease, they may stipulate no artificial ventilation, no respirator, thinking in terms of their gradual respiratory decline. They don't want to get on a respirator, be unable to come off. However, this same person might be agreeable to a respirator if they needed it just for a couple of days to recover from a severe pneumonia. So the medical power of attorney provides a person who's going to make the healthcare decisions or communicate with your medical care team if you're unable to do so. They can talk with your medical providers, read your medical records, and make decisions about tests, procedures, and other treatments. I'm sorry this is faint. The Institute for Healthcare Improvement has this great booklet about how to choose your healthcare proxy. And it's not just the nuts and bolts, but some of the values to think about as you're deciding on someone who might represent you. And the information to get a hold of the IHI is in the back of your hand, is it on your handout? I guess it's, I don't know if it's front or back, but it's on there. And there, I have a copy that I can let you glance through to see if you think it's worthwhile printing out at home. But a medical power of attorney does need to be somebody who understands your values and wishes for medical care and would be willing to make decisions that respect those priorities. In my time in medicine, I've heard lots of doctors asking sons and daughters, so what do you think we should do in this particular medical situation? And my take was that I tried to reframe that and say, our job here today is to figure out what your parent would have wanted done for him or her if they were able to express their wishes. A medical power of attorney is often a spouse or child, but not always. It could be a close friend, a pastoral figure. And again, you have to nominate somebody for this job who knows your values and will honor your wishes. I had a lady tell me, you know, my son would continue aggressive treatment even if it was clear I was not going to recover. And I've told him time and time again, that's not what I want. But I have a daughter who gets it. She knows that what I want towards the end of life is comfort. So clearly the daughter is the one who can best represent this person's wishes. After appointing someone as your medical power of attorney, it's good to tell the family. And I found this discussion line that I kind of liked about how do you tell the brother or sister that you don't choose? And the line was, I want you to be able to focus fully on our time together rather than on healthcare decisions that might cause you stress. How's that for tact? I loved it. So we've talked a little bit about who your medical power of attorney can be. Let me just tell you a quick word about who cannot be your medical power of attorney. So nobody who's part of your healthcare team. If you resided at a healthcare facility, no one who works there can be your medical power of attorney. And remember, even after you sign the medical power of attorney forms, you can still make your healthcare decisions as long as you're able to do so. Once you've chosen your medical power of attorney, how can you clarify your medical preferences for them? First, I think you need to get good medical info on your situation. And all too often, asking your primary care provider for this results in statements like, the inciting event was probably a thromboembolism leading to hypotension and uremia resulting in AKI. I suggest placement of a PICC line in the left antecubital through which we can effuse a third-generation cephalosporin. Right. But take your stand. Part of your primary care provider's job is to give you medical information that's understandable. So ask them to translate the medicalese. And the second handout I gave you all is tips on how to talk to your doctor about your care. And I'm saddened that this might be a helpful thing, but the truth is, I think that sometimes you need some assistance in that. If you're getting a diagnosis of a new serious illness or choosing treatments, think about taking your medical power of attorney with you to the doctor's office to help you in hearing the information, hearing the treatment options, and choosing. There are a few other questions that are sort of bigger picture questions that might help you flesh out what your medical priorities would be at the end of life. So are you always somebody who wants to know all the minutia, all the details about something, or are you a big picture kind of gal? Are there specific upcoming life events that you want to be there for? A wedding in the family, somebody's high school graduation? Is being without pain at the end of life the most important thing to you, even if the medicines make you a little sedated? Or are you somebody who would really rather be completely alert, even if it means you're experiencing some pain? Do you want to be home at the end of life? Or would you feel more secure in a facility where there are medical personnel around the clock? There are lots of options to get a medical power of attorney form. Vivian found some that I think are really excellent forms for both living will and medical power of attorney. Those are in your handouts.
I think those are, they're on the back table.
Oh, sorry, okay.
Those up later.
Okay. And then these are some websites or locations to find other options. There are roughly a bazillion forms of both these documents. And the medical power of attorney forms, like living wills, need 2 witnesses, need to be notarized, can be voided if your wishes change. Be sure once you complete this document that the person who's going to represent you has a copy. Your primary care provider, here in our location, the hospital likes to have a copy, and some of your medical specialists. I mean, your dermatologist probably doesn't really care what you think about artificial nutrition, but your cardiologist is going to care a lot about that sort of thing. And this is a form that I would not keep only in your safety deposit box. When the emergency happens and you're calling 911, you or they need to be able to get a hold of this document to guide your care.
It's really handy if the hospital has it, because even if you end up at a different hospital, they can call that hospital and probably get it.
Right. Yep.
Whereas if you have to drive 4 hours and you aren't ready to do that right then, and they need it that day, and you're like, well, I'm not going there now.
Yeah, right, right. So it is a wonderful backup. Thanks. That's a good point.
Medical power of attorney, I mean, that's not a normal, I mean, you don't do it when you're in good health, or do you? I mean, you can, I know, but I mean, it seems like it, I mean, things, examples and stuff, it's kind of like after you get a diagnosis of something, or, I mean, I know you should have, I mean, have something in place, but.
And I think it's probably used most often when there's a critical illness, which sounds like sort of what you're asking. But I know people who are medical power of attorney who are also insert themselves into decision-making processes earlier on. So they're hearing the same information for frail family members or friends.
Mom and Dad had me do it 20 years ago. Or my parents 20 years ago.
I know,
But my dad also had marginal health his whole life, so you know.
just thinking,
It's not a bad, particularly if you live alone, it's not a bad idea to have it. You know, you could be, I was in a really bad accident a few years ago, and it can be helpful to have someone that needs to make decisions for you, even.
And remember, like, since it has to be witnessed and notarized, a notary's not gonna accept it if you're not in capacity. They will not notarize the document for you.
Our doctor gave us forms to fill out in the last few years, which we've not filled out. But we did, and we took it to our primary care physician, and they had a copy on file. Then, when they were called, they would have it to share with wherever we happen to be.
That should be the case, although
Yeah.
from the inside, I would still say, don't count on it.
When my
I
dad was taken to the hospital, they were about to wheel him into surgery when they were like, we called the surgeon for his massive stroke, and I was like, no, he doesn't, then they found it, but they were working quickly.
Yeah,
But he
yeah.
was 91 and had a massive stroke. I think they would have checked a little bit more, but they were, you know.
In an emergency,
We gotta go do it.
people
And I'm
feel like they have to,
no, he does
yeah.
not want any surgery.
Yeah, yeah. And just a few words again about the Colorado Most form. Oh, sorry, that really got bleached out pretty badly. Again, needs to be completed by a medical professional. It talks about several of the same treatment options which you can accept or decline. Again, your doc really needs to talk to you about this. When you're talking about resuscitation, you need to know what's that experience going to be like, and what are the potential side effects of that? In my medical situation, how effective is that going to be for me? Those are really important questions.
I just took a CPR training, and so as a result of that, I'm having to do not resuscitate, stay hold on my.
Yeah, tattooed on your chest, I know.
Much more horrific, I think, than I ever thought.
Resuscitation is a life-saving measure, but initially it was designed for young, otherwise healthy military men,
Right.
and buying them time to get to a higher level of medical treatment. It was not originally intended for those of us who are gray-haired and getting frail.
Little old lady.
So the outcome and the side effects are a lot different. Yep. So I'll move on to summarize the matters of life and death that we talked about tonight, so you can guide your medical care at the end of life by using a living will, a medical power of attorney, and or a Colorado Most form. But the number one priority, again, is conversation. Talk about your priorities with your family or close friends now. And you may need to be the one to bring it up. In my experience, seniors are a whole lot more comfortable talking about illness and death than young folk. And I brought some items that relate to end-of-life medical care to show you and to tell you about. I don't think this is on the, there's a rap that you can get as a YouTube video by Z-Dog MD.
I was just gonna ask about, I'm sure I wanna go to a doctor named Z-Dog.
Ain't the way to die is what he calls it. And it goes by pretty quickly. Phil and I watched it together the other night.
It's really good.
But it is really a good presentation about what it's like to be resuscitated and what it's like in an ICU. So I would encourage you, if you're at all interested, take a look. And then there are two books over here that I was going to show you. Sadly, I can't tell you to go to the bookshop and get them anymore, but Being Mortal by Atul Gawande probably.
And there's also a PB on Frontline. They did a whole thing called Being Mortal. It's really good. You can get it just online.
Oh, great.
They did it on PBS.
Yep.
Really good.
He's a surgeon, but came to recognize the importance of discussing end-of-life care and how we probably are missing the mark. This book, Finishing Well to the Glory of God, is the perspective of a Christian physician on end-of-life issues. And I found this really good reading. 5 Wishes, I have a couple of copies. This is all I could get. But this is another means by which you can talk about what your priorities are for end-of-life care. And then lastly, I have decks of cards. This is real, I think it's tremendously creative. These are called Go Wish cards. There are 36 of them in here. And they talk about priorities at the end of life. So to be able to talk about what death means, to meet with a clergy or a chaplain, etc. 36 of them. So you lay them out in 3 piles. This is really important to me. This is sort of important, and this is not important at all. And then you take the most important category, pick out the top 10, and arrange them in order 1 to 10. And then they suggest that at that point, you can talk with your family, let them know these are my priorities and why. And then there's a wild card in there. So if the most important thing to you when you're at end of life is to go whitewater rafting, then that's this. That would not be me, but anyway, I have some of these card decks. If you can use them or just want to take a look to see, do feel free to take one home. That's why I have them, so people can use them to discuss with family and friends. All right, Vivian. Oh, I'm sorry. My techno advisor said that for payment, I had to allow him to insert one slide at the end of the presentation. So let me give you a background. This is a group of religious experts that will be coming to your house in March to find out whether or not you followed through and designed major advance directives.
Scariest thing I've ever seen.
Yes. Thank you, Phil.
The scary one.
Thing that you can access.
Ain't no way to die. Or ain't the way to die. Sorry, Alice.
On the first page on the bottom, what's the address?
Z-Dog.
Z-Dog MD.
Oh, here it is.
But fasten your seatbelt, Alice. It goes by fast.
I just wanted to say regarding Carol's remarks, I really like the medical POA forms, and I've held that for a cousin of mine for 5 years now. She's still living and good for a number of years, but I go with her to her medical appointments, and I don't have to, I'll sometimes fill out a HIPAA form, but I have the authority to get the information for her and to talk to the doctors. And some of you who have living parents, often folks should have someone going with them to doctor's appointments, or should have someone talking independently to the doctor, because they can't remember really, the information is hard to digest, or they have a hard time telling the doctor what's important.
Right. I got one for my mom. I had been taking her to medical appointments, and she would have all these complaints that she'd tell me, and then I'd take her, leave her, go have coffee, come pick her up, and she'd get in the car, and I'd say, so did you, and she goes, oh, no, I forgot to tell him that, or whatever, so she wasn't getting any.
I told him I was fine.
She said, I told him I was fine, and I'm like, oh my God, for 2 months you've been saying you have this problem. So it really was hard, so I started going to moms, and plus I can call and say she's having problems with this medicine. It's been a godsend being a POA for her, medical power.
Yeah, so anyway, I like it a lot. I'm going to talk just very briefly about wills. How many of you already have a will in place? Yeah, okay. Most of you. Yeah. So there are a lot of them online that are really good, and I included one in the material. That one is very simple, and almost all of them start out in a pretty similar manner. They will have you name the executor, or in Colorado, it's called a personal representative. And then it will go on to say that that personal representative shall pay all of your debts, and et cetera, and obligations. And then some of them will have you, if you want some, it would be common to make some bequests of maybe a straight dollar amount to certain members of the family. And then the will that I included in there is one way of doing it. It had you name which person got which type of assets. So my cousin Johnny will get my car, and my sister will get my bank accounts, blah, blah, blah. That's one way to do it. Another way to do it is say that after the debts have been paid, what's left is called the residuary, or residual estate. And it will say, okay, I've got two brothers and a sister. Each one of them is gonna get 1/3. Or you can leave it to an organization. So there are differences in how you can leave gifts to other people, and you just have to figure out what suits you best and your family. There's several ways. Colorado is really forward-thinking in a lot of ways, and there are several ways. Well, let me go back to the issue of probate. We often talk about, I'm going to avoid probate. Well, you can't exactly ignore it completely in most states like Colorado. Probate is a process where someone is given the legal authority, and even in Colorado, you were appointed as a personal representative by the probate court. And then you have the authority to gather up the assets of the person that's died, and you have the authority to, you first have to get claims from all the creditors, and when the creditors have been satisfied, then you have the authority to distribute the assets either according to the will, or if the person died without a will, the law will decide which family members get what. So the spouse gets this, or children get this. It's all by law. However, in Colorado, there's a simple process. If your assets are $80,000 or less, you can use what they call an informal process. And it's just a matter of, for Uray County, the district court, which is in the county courthouse, is the one that would handle probate matters. And if you're doing one of these simple informal proceedings, you trot up to them, and there's a form that you fill out to get named as the personal representative. And then there's some documents. You can exchange the documents back and forth more or less with the clerk, and you don't have to have a hearing. It's just truly much simpler. So
That's only for 80,000.
80,000 or less. And if it's more than that, then a hearing would be required, and there are more hoops. But there are a number of ways that some of them aren't complicated at all, that you can pass property without having to. Those types of assets don't go through probate. They pass automatically upon your death. So the one that people are most familiar with would be a property, tenants, joint tenants. And in that case, it's usually married people. But when the first one dies, then the other one automatically inherits the property, and that doesn't go through probate, even the simple kind. And there's some other types, particularly in Colorado, that you can use. You can register your car so that it's transferable upon death, and that doesn't have to go through probate. With real property, if there's someone that you don't want to, there is a, let's see what you call it. It's called, where are you? It's basically a transfer upon death deed. And so in that case, when I first saw that, I said, well, why wouldn't you just be a joint tenant? Why do that? Well, it's because maybe you don't want to give someone some control or ownership of that property during your lifetime. Right? If you do the transferable upon death, then, I might change my mind next year. From now. Whereas, and if they're on the deed, then maybe we don't get along anymore, and I've got to have that person's consent to sell it. So it's one thing to think about, and it's apparently not very hard. And upon your death, that property goes to the person. They would produce a death certificate, and you don't have to go through probate. And there are a couple of other similar things like that. There are bank accounts that are payable upon death. And again, maybe you don't want that person having, you want to feel completely independent during your lifetime. Well, okay, so when I die, they get it. And that can be really handy too, because then there's some money available if there are expenses to be paid. If you have a mortgage or some other things like that, they have access to that money.
So Vivian, would you go to your banker about that?
Yeah, and apparently I meant to call this afternoon the 2 local banks. Some banks offer it and not all do. So I think it's worth a call. And I could do that as well.
Question, if you have say an IRA or something, you have like a spouse is the 100% beneficiary, but then you have secondary beneficiaries. If both both died at the same time. Now, which one would supersede a will? If a will was more, which one would they go with? If your will was different.
I think it's the designation on the IRA that's really going to be wrong. So that is
Money market account.
Yeah, that is another way that with some types of CDs or investment accounts, you can make those payable upon death.
Right.
And again, those all have a way of transferring without having to wait and without having to go through a
So that's already
program.
assigned.
That's already
Designated.
Same with life insurance is another way that we pass on money to people that survive us, and it doesn't have to go through a probate process. So all of those are kind of techniques to pass along property or assets without having to go through any hoops. Yeah, Lorraine?
Your executor, if it's not a husband or a partner or whatever, like a good friend, would need to know all this, all your assets, that you, in the name of the company and all that.
That's what we, last week, one of the handouts was the personal inventory.
Yeah.
And that's exactly the reason for that kind of thing. And again, even in the simple process for probate, you have to list the assets. They have a list, and you fill it out, and you have to provide some detail. And the representative has to provide a copy of I think the will is supposed to be provided within 10 days of death. So it's really handy to queue up the person who's going to be your personal representative and give them as much information. You don't want to scare them off, because then they say, I don't want to do this. Pick somebody else.
Amy's great aunt had her uncle do it. She just kept giving away the same money to different people.
She kept telling people that
They were doing wills for,
multiple wills.
it was like this much money, and then the pot just kept going, here.
It took years and years and years. Because same amount of money she gave to a whole bunch of people. Now, Vivian, where do you keep, like, for instance, we're actually getting our wills redone by our attorney right now. But like and we're gonna get it all laid out for Olivia so she knows where everything is. But where do you keep wills? Or, I know your lawyer has your will at their office and everything, but where do you suggest that wills be?
I think the most, it's often recommended that you keep the original with the lawyer, but what I did on the copies that I made, I made copies and give to the executors, and then I put on it, the original is held here.
I have to let them know what lawyer has it, or you'll be good at phone books trying to find out.
So you could keep it in a safety deposit box, but then you have to tell your executor where the key is.
Yeah.
The important thing is just keep it in the original document as the safest place you've got, but then with the copies, and tell people where it is.
And be on good terms with the people that you are giving money to so they don't off you. You know, I watch a lot of, I watch a lot of true crime. I know. We're sitting here with our diabolical minds going, they're gonna get.
But we should we'll have a showing of kind hearts and coronets.
That's right.
Yeah, I have some money in New Zealand. And of course, if something were to happen, Rick pushed me off a cliff or something. It would be easier for my daughter there because, so should I be telling her all this or tell the bank there, go in person? I've done nothing about that. That's kind of far away.
Yeah, you know, and I don't know what their laws are like. I mean, if she's the one you wanted to give it to, and if they do something like payable upon death, that might be a way. But I think you need to.
Yeah,
I think you need to look into it a little more.
Yeah.
You know, she's there. She could look into it a little bit more for you.
But they may need me in person to sign.
Yeah.
Oh, you just want to go.
You want to
Yeah, that's right.
One thing I found out when we met with our attorney in Grand Junction was, so there needs to be like an investment company or something to help out our daughter. And I mean, because everything's with Vanguard, but I mean, it's not like a personal, so he was suggesting some places so I mean, just that's something to think about, that it's not really, they're managing the investments, but they would be something where she could actually meet face to face.
Especially since she's fairly young.
Instead of by Zoom or something, like I have a rep that I meet with by Zoom, but I don't know, he just suggested a company, they want to have a company that's going to be around a long time, and Vanguard would be, but it's just, they're in Arizona, and it's something to think about, local, not really a money, it's more of a trust department almost, that kind of would help with, advice and things like that, anyway. So, something to think about.
Yeah, so I wasn't real.
Discovered that it's much easier to get through the Vanguard on Tuesday through Thursday.
I have it, I get through very easily.
So trusts are something that a lot of folks don't really need to do. For many of us, a will is just fine. The reason, I mean, there's some reasons to do it. One is if your affairs are really complicated, or you had assets that were hard to value, you don't want to go through a probate process. A trust can be set up. And then essentially it's a person in the same role as an executor or a personal representative. The trustee would be doing the same thing. And for some families, a trust is kind of necessary. If there's a family member whose needs you need to provide for a long time to come, and you don't want to hand that money over directly at death, then you can have a trust that goes into effect as of the date of death, and funds are there on a long-term basis. And
well, this is our situation because of our beloved son over here, Charlie.
Absolutely.
So we have a rather more complicated situation.
And the trusts are, that's what they're designed for, and some families will have provisions so the relative can take advantage of public assistance, Medicaid. But for those, you need a lawyer that knows what they're doing. So that's when that sort of thing has to be done.
I was just thinking about this recently. So we started out with Mike Hawkersneck, who retired, and so is it just? Is a will stuff just in their office without the lawyer that And Andy, and I mean, we've got
Marty. I got a notice from Marty for certain types of documents. It's probably a good idea to contact her office and maybe take custody and give them to somebody else, because I think she's physically moving.
Yeah, we have office.
You too. Did you contact Marty?
We didn't have him do our will, but we
Okay.
had, so, yeah, we have some other things.
Yeah. So anyway, the materials towards further down in the packet, there's a 2-page description on describing a little bit about, it's called So You Want to Be a Personal Representative, and it is a little bit of a simplification. People are going to have to look in a little more detail. For example, the personal representative needs to do such things as contact Social Security to tell them that you have passed away. I think often Social Security is going to have to get a refund because they claim that if you die after the first of the month, they're gonna want that.
So plan your death accordingly.
I think.
Look at your calendar.
Exactly. A final tax return has to be filed, and then there's quite a bit of time that gets done. The year, essentially, tax due date on the year after you die. But there's some things like that the executor, the personal representative needs to do. The other documents, then there was a sample will. Again, it's very, very simplistic. And there are a lot of other examples on the internet. Make sure that you pick a Colorado model because rules change from state to state. Mark pointed out that some of the forms that are available on the internet are not, you don't have to retype everything, they're fillable. You fill them out on the computer. And be done with it, and that helps a lot. And then there were the instructions from the probate court in Uray on how to handle the estates under 80,000 and how to do the more complicated ones. And I went up there this morning. It's on the 3rd floor, and the clerk was so friendly, and it was like, how can I help you, and can I print this for you? So it's not like one of those. Some kind of courts, they won't give you any information at all. She was very, very helpful. And she'll work with your relatives or whoever to help walk it through and help make it as easy as possible.
What is her name?
I forget. She had the, huh?
Christine.
Okay, yeah. Are you sure that she's not the downstairs clerk? This is the 3rd floor clerk for the court. Yeah. I apologize. I was just, I lost it. Yeah. Any other questions? Are we good to go? I don't know about you, but I got some work to do when I get home on some of these things.
Yeah.
We're gonna take it care of.
Thank you so much.
Sure.
Thanks, Sylvia.
Yeah, thank you.
Really wonderful information, and I'm glad that you all come back and going on this journey with us. Just a couple of things. All the documents that we can share, I will of course send them to you guys through your email, so you have electronic versions of it as well. I'm also gathering links for like some of these online wills programs and things like that. I'll send those out as well. And just know, again, one of my main goals, one of my personal desires out of all this is I want everyone here to have a funeral plan. And we're done. And the plan.
That's our homework.
And I will take those, copy of those to keep in our files here at the church. We have a fire safe file cabinet. If, and I'm not saying it's a necessity, but if you desire to put a copy of your will in with those, we can keep those as well.
And you're here another 40 years?
Yeah. You're going to be here for another
20. Vivian keeps trying to push me on that. 20 till I retire. So we're going to try to keep all this available for everyone. Everything that we can share, we absolutely will. And if there's anything that comes up that you're not seeing, hearing, or want to know about, we'll try to add that on and continue on. I'm hoping, I've got like a tentative agreement from Crippen to be with us next week. So we're hoping to have them come in and help present a little bit about the funeral business and how all that kind of goes, and to give you some more insight into what to think about and to plan for. And then after, the week after that, we have Hope West coming in. So yeah, that'll be the week after that, will be Hope West coming in to talk about hospice, and those topics, so. Again, thank you all for coming. Thank you so much for soup tonight.
Oh my God.
Yes.
Katie.
Woo, wonderful.
Delicious.
Yeah, so thank you very much, and y'all have a wonderful night.
Great, thanks.